On today's episode, we sit down with DeRico Symonds. DeRico grew up in the West End of Halifax and from a young age has always had an interest in helping families and communities. After graduating university, he worked with Phoenix, a nonprofit community-based organization, for 5 years. He is now manager of the Youth Advocate Program for the City of Halifax and is also a part-time Black Student Support Coordinator for Mount St. Vincent University. DeRico has some exciting plans for which path his career will take in the near future. Listen in as we go through it all.
I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old.
All right, we're back for another episode of Brand New View. I'm back with my wonderful co-host, Ben Brammer. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Awesome.
Excited for the weekend.
Oh, yes, it is. It is a Friday.
Yeah.
We're very excited tonight to sit down with DeRico Symonds. How you doing, DeRico?
I'm good. I mean, I'm here on a Friday, but I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. We're eating of all of DeRico's free time.
I know.
You'll learn in a minute, but...
chose to spend his Friday night with us. We feel pretty lucky right now, I gotta say.
Fairly grateful, yes.
It's gonna be fun.
Awesome, yeah, very exciting. Excited to get started. So you grew up in the same area of Halifax that I grew up in.
And what did you call it earlier?
Well, I think I may have addressed it on a previous episode. It's the West End, the best end.
Well, right.
The only end. What was it like growing up in the West End, DeRico?
So I guess like the area, like the pubs or public housing or Bears Westwood would be the more, I guess, politically correct name for the neighborhood.
Okay.
Most people don't know that, actually.
I'm not gonna lie. I grew up adjacent to the pubs as I knew it growing up,
right.
and that's the first time I ever heard it.
Yeah. So like the politically correct name or like name you would see in like documents or whatever would be Bears Westwood, but the pubs is normally what it's known. So I would say that it's definitely wasn't one of the roughest places in the city. For sure, there's been other places that had more challenges, but it wasn't necessarily easy for a number of reasons. I mean, it is a public housing community, and with that does bring its fair share of challenges. And more particular with myself is that single parent home, 2 brothers. I had a stepfather who they eventually split, but he passed away a couple of years ago. So in particular, like growing up there, it was fun. It was great. Had a lot of good friends, but there were some significant challenges just with growing up there.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And you went to St. Catherine's Elementary School, which is, I'm just wondering why you chose St. Catherine's instead of Westmount. I mean, it's like the same distance.
Is that the one that's on your street that you grew up on?
Yeah.
That's Westmount.
That's Westmount Elementary School.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
So where's St.
Catherine's is on the other side of Connaught.
Connolly Street.
Connolly Street.
Oh, I know where you're at.
Just to be exact.
Yeah. I know where Connolly Street is.
Yeah, there's a baseball field nearby there.
Yeah, okay,
And the Armory.
Connolly Street's like the longest street in Halifax. It cuts through everything.
Well,
are you thinking?
Yeah.
Well,
one of the greatest streets. I mean, it's got,
Oh,
I
yes,
love that. I love that.
Home too. Yes, of course. But then we joined up in junior high in St. Agnes. And what was it like for you at St. Agnes?
It was, well, so one thing I just wanted to touch on actually in elementary, because...
Absolutely. Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, it was St. Catherine's.
Exactly. So
No, it wasn't Westmount.
So, like, there's kind of this thing, like, as kids where you... like, kids are just naive for the most part, and I feel like... it's kind of going in a direction in terms of like racism, discrimination stuff. So like as we get older, like folks learn like discriminatory behavior. But like in elementary, I guess what I want to bring up is like I learned that I was black or like different from other folks based on just things like kids would say, N-word and like all of those kinds of things, and somewhat of a defining moment in terms of growing up, because I mean I was just friends with people, but then people made me recognize or realize that like my skin color was different than other people. So then that took me on a little bit of like I don't want to say a journey, but like, okay, well, I guess if this is a thing, I have some learning to do. So St. Agnes was I had a good time at St. Agnes. I mean, other than passing of Emmett, suicide. He lived next door to me. We were supposed to play in the basketball tournament that coming Monday, and I mean, I remember that Friday leaving. I saw folks saying, go to the mall, get me these sneakers, or we're gonna beat you up. And then that Monday we came to school, and he was told that he committed suicide, he suicided. So other than that moment at St. Agnes, like were some really good times. It I think for the most part kind of shaped a bit, like in terms of like who I was. But I had a really good time at St. Agnes, and met a lot of people, of course, that still know now.
Right. It's a great place to be.
Right.
Decent sports teams. I mean,
how many would have went to that?
I don't know how many. I don't know, because it wasn't that many feeder schools.
No,
I guess
a few hundred.
That would have been it. So it wasn't that big of a junior high. Everyone kind of knew everyone. Yeah. In that sense.
At that age, you're 13 to 15. You pretty much met those other folks somewhere along the way.
Yeah. There was. I can still remember some of the teachers I had. I mean, we were talking off the pod of some that I still remember as well. Were there any teachers that kind of had an impact on you that you still remember?
Absolutely. One, I think, and it might be for many people, that Miss Mitchell. And she was the teacher that I disliked the most, but I also respected the most. And
it's funny how that goes. Eh?
Right. Yeah. And my dislike, when I think back, like it might have been an actual like, but my dislike was that she just like pushed you like to the core, and she was like,
you dislike that she pushed you, but subconsciously you're like, God, thank God she's pushing
Absolutely.
me. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like a good coach that you hate.
Exactly. We'll get to coaches in this couple. But the dislike was that she pushed me, and like I was smart enough to just do what I needed to do just to get by, but she was always like pushing me for more. So it was kind of a love-hate relationship, and then I haven't realized how much she actually cared about the students until you left the school.
I would imagine most of her students would be able to recall her, for sure.
Yeah.
Miss Mitchell?
Yeah.
You didn't have her?
I did, yeah.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah. I remember her quite well.
Was it a similar feeling?
Absolutely, yeah. Like she could recognize the potential, and she wasn't going to let you off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
Which
you
is
gotta respect her.
great. I mean, that's what you want.
That was absolutely it. Yeah. She would see something in each person individually, and she would press you, like to make sure you get everything out.
As humans, that's kind of like, this could be a generalization, but that's kind of hard to admit to yourself. If someone else recognizes your potential and brings that forward to you, like my natural reaction is like, no. You don't get to tell me what my potential is.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like you're almost like not wanting to admit that that they're right. Like you're almost like discouraged that they figured it out before you did.
Yeah, I mean, I think like most people are like somewhat like innately humble. Like you point out something that I'm good at, and our instant reaction is like, no, like no.
Push back.
I just do it. Like, I don't know. I just like,
no, that's nothing to me.
I think I actually said that.
Right. It's true. It's a weird feeling to kind of be like, no, there's something that you can be good at, and you should know you're good at it, and take advantage of the fact that you're good at it. And she was she was
good at recognizing that.
Yeah,
and really that's good. That's key. That's a good teacher right there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And so grade 7, 8, 9 were St. Agnes.
Mm-hmm.
And then where did you guys go for high school? QE.
Great high school.
Man. Queen Elizabeth High was like, there was a lot of dynasty that came out of there, like sports teams, people, a lot like
Honestly.
if you've ever been in the Lion's Den downstairs, like you would know.
Yeah.
Like, you would know.
Those last 3 years of that high school, they're gonna write movies about it. They already have.
Yeah, my biopic's already started. So
Okay, it's not the one that's torn down, is it?
okay, whoa. Too soon.
I was like, what do you mean? I don't have an opportunity to
It
go in
was
this Lion's Den.
respectfully removed.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Pretty sure it was. It's like
It's
Oh,
preserved.
It's preserved. Yeah. Should have
It's
seen the stampede of
grassland.
mice that ran out of there after
yeah,
that.
mice would be like the nicest thing that ran out of that. What actually happened? Dynamite?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they blew it up and they
Yeah.
buried it underground.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what they buried it right underneath. I'm not making that up.
No, it's like
Provides
grassland there
fantastic
now.
fertilization. Oh my. Anyway, so after, I feel like after high school was when, I mean, I didn't see you for years. Kind of went.
Yeah.
I mean, we stayed in the city,
Yeah.
but I kind of lost myself at Dalhousie. Where'd you?
You
head?
had to experience another 8 or 9 schools.
Whoops.
Yeah, I mean, geez, after high school there was like so many changes. So, I mean, during high school and leading up into university, I don't know if you remember Mr. Paris. He was a guidance counselor at QEH. So, I went to his office and I said, "Sign me up for university now. Here's what I'm interested in, and if you don't, I'm not gonna go." He signed me up to Mount St. Vincent University. At the time, I was working part-time at Recreation Center, St. Andrews, in the pubs. And if he didn't, I wouldn't have went to university.
Really?
So he signed me up. And
Why did you choose MSVU?
because they're the only school in
So many
Nova
girls.
Scotia. Well, they're the only school in Nova Scotia that had the Child and Youth Study program. So
Really?
yeah, being that the only university, so there's community
what a
college and
smart
such. After I got signed up, like, I didn't really change much because I mean, like, although I was somewhat of a good person, like, I'm definitely was not the person that I am now, and it took a lot of like growing and a lot of things to happen to kind of come to, and I'm still not a perfect person. Nobody's perfect, but like absolutely different perspective and like different outlook and person that I was like throughout junior high, high school, and university is kind of where I actually kind of came into my own.
Did you feel that way from day one?
That
That you were kind of coming into your own and that things were starting to change and the perspectives were all new?
it's a very good question.
Like, I'm just, you know what I mean? When I first went to university, and just maybe try and help you out, but like, I had like a light bulb switch moment, right?
Yep. Yes. So, okay. So when I was in university, like I would, it was like the way I dressed, the way I talked, like the things that I was still into. I had no friends in university for like the first year. I didn't talk to anybody. Although I made the basketball team, like I didn't talk to anybody, and I almost flunked out and failed my first year. I think my GPA was 1.6, and they send that letter home that says basically kind of get your stuff together, or you know you're going to be kicked out of university. So for me in university, it was kind of like not learning how things are supposed to go, but kind of learning how to be a professional, learning how you should do things or how you should speak if you're in this environment. And so like I really feel like I kind of came into who I was and who I was going to be while I was in that university environment. And I mean, I don't want to say that. Yeah. I don't want to say that university is like a safe place to mess up, because like if you mess up, you get kicked out. But it was, for me, like I made so many mistakes while I was there that I figured out kind of who I was.
If done correctly, that's probably what most people aspire to do, right? Like, kind of have it as that safety net,
Right.
or safety blanket. Now, did you live at home or were you part of Res?
So never lived in residence, and living at home is a kind of another story in itself, because as I said, like growing up in the pubs, like it wasn't always easy. So there would be several things that would be happening at home. Like I don't mind talking about them. I've got permission from mom to so there would be things like example that like I would be going to a basketball game and there may be like a domestic thing going on at home and mom and stepdad are fighting, or money's due on something but I have to go to school or I have to go to university, basketball game, and get my mind around that, which created like its own challenges in itself. And nobody had a car, like I would bus or I would walk, so living at home was great in terms of saving money, but it was also brought a set of its own challenges, because it's almost as if like it's completely two different worlds in terms of like where I'm going home to versus leaving university to go home is like home is a completely different world than the university world. So like I'm still like in both of these worlds, and I'm at home, I'm hanging out with my friends. We may or may not be doing things that are getting us in trouble, but then after that, like I'm going back to university, which is a completely different environment. So I'm bouncing between the two, and eventually it's like, well, you got to make a decision here. You got it. And so I eventually moved out, probably my third year or so. But even moving out wasn't like, it wasn't by it was by choice, but it was by choice because there were things happening at home, arguments happening. My mom's fiance, we didn't get along, and it was just like huge argument, huge blow up, and I was like, okay, fine, well, I'm gonna move out. Scary, had never lived on my own before, but it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made, and moved out, and things started to kind of change a little bit because I was like out of that environment, and if you think about like in terms of like a hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you need to have those needs met before you can actually focus and come to kind of self-actualization. So being in like those environments and like not necessarily like the needs were met, there were food and that kind of thing, but like I wasn't able to mentally focus. And so once that environment changed, things started kind of changing for me. And so I don't want to paint like a picture that like it was crazy environment at home, because my mom did her absolute best and made sure we had what we needed, but absolutely like there were humbling moments and there were several challenges.
It's amazing to hear you speak so candidly about it. I mean,
There's
I'm not
challenges that I would
necessarily-
be completely foreign to.
I can't even empathize. So it's one of those things. It's nice to hear you speak candidly about it, and obviously in a positive light that your mom gave you permission to do so. But that's kind of the life aspect around MSBU. But you were just starting to tell us about that switch.
Yeah. So there was really kind of a moment where some of my friends were either going to jail, and this is kind of like the parallel between, I'm still at the Mount, but I'm still also living in my neighborhood.
Two worlds.
Yeah, you were in two worlds for quite a bit there.
Yeah. So probably about
You're
three.
super cognizant of it.
That's
Mark
my
hates
favorite
when I
word.
use that. But you're super aware of it, at least. I mean, that's hard to do.
Yeah,
in the moment.
Absolutely. So I mean, there was this kind of moment where, and it's going to sound like kind of funny, but like like a movie, like almost where like I'm just kind of sitting there and like I'm kind of hazy for a bit, and I'm just like looking around and like my friends are great, and it's just that I always felt like I wanted to do something different, and like my motivation was like I wanted to help my mom, but I also wanted to help my friends in my neighborhood and my community. So I wanted to kind of transcend the circumstances that were around me, and I would spend like I don't know how many hours honestly at the basketball court in my neighborhood, and my thinking was, so every single time a car would drive by, I'm not making this up, like I would like dribble as hard as I can and like try to do like as much as I could, because in my head I was like, okay, the car is gonna drive by and he's gonna stop, and like the person's gonna get out, and like I'm gonna get like this major basketball deal or something. Never happened. But like
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, I've been there.
it's more like it like I just started kind of having like higher level thinking around, okay, like it doesn't matter where you are as much as it does that where you want to go. And so I just made the decision, like I just decided. And I think half the battle is actually wrestling with yourself around like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? But then once you decide and you just say you're going to do it and you actually physically put it out there, then it becomes a bit easier. Shoulders drop a little bit. So I just made the decision. I'm going to finish university. Was the first person in my family, immediate family, to finish university. My brother graduated a couple months later, but I was the first person, so I'll take that.
Oh yeah,
You own that.
Absolutely.
I like that. That's impressive.
that's awesome. Congrats.
It is awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
And was it the same degree that
Same degree that Mr. Paris
that Mr.
signed you.
Paris signed you up for? Was it the same?
Yeah. Actually, it was. So I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, it was the same degree that Mr. Paris signed me up for, and it's one of those like feelings you can't really explain. Like once I finished, and like I remember sitting in my last exam, like I actually did it, and like getting that piece of paper, like I just said, well, this is the piece of paper that says I can make some money now, essentially with the degree. But it was hard to describe in terms of like what it felt like to finish an undergraduate degree, just given I just had so many challenges, and I mean, so do so many other folks. So I don't really, I don't complain too much about it. It is what it is. It was what it was, and I just had to make best out of the circumstances that I had.
Yeah, and you definitely have done so in our view. I mean, that's exactly kind of why we're having this discussion. But
one may say, in the brand new view.
yeah,
there you go.
I absolutely love that.
I love that. You owned your situation. Your situation didn't own you.
Right.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say something very similar to that. You were able to just remove yourself from it, understand the situation you were in, but then ultimately get to where you wanted to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
almost.
so like I just get blown away by some of our guests being able to speak about that, how aware they were in that moment. That's so cool to me.
It's almost as if you externalize yourself. So like externalize your situation from yourself, and your situation is your situation, and it doesn't need to define you. So deciding where you want to go can and so I have this thing with words being physical, because probably the biggest cliche is the richest place in the world is the graveyard. However, it's the richest place in the world. It's because there's so many people who never got to share their ideas. And once you physically tell somebody that you're going to do it, it starts manifesting itself. The world will get out of your way. And I tell people, like, tell somebody what you want to do every single day, because the world's going to get out of your way. And if people don't know what you want to do, then they're not going to be able to help you with what you want to do.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I love that, because I mean, it does really start to manifest itself once you like. I'm very routine like, so once you profess it day in, day out,
Yep.
it honestly takes on its own little life where you're externalized from it, but you're able to remind yourself, okay, I'm going to run this marathon. I'm going to get a 3.0, 4.0 or whatever.
Yeah.
Once you start,
It's true. I mean, we talked about it before. We can't explain it, but
Right.
once you embrace that attitude, it just, yeah. I mean, we had
world's your oyster.
Erica, a previous guest, talk about it. She called it synchronicity,
Mm.
and just things just falling into place because you keep yourself open to opportunities and have the right attitude about things.
Yep. Yeah.
My dad would always used to say, I would always question, like, why is this happening? What's going on? Why am I feeling this way? And he would always respond with, you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just let that settle in.
Mhm.
Let your head wrap itself around that. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Stop being so fearful of what may come, or, worried about what has already happened. Just
Right.
try and live as present as you can, and remind yourself, You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Just keep doing what you're doing. So it was,
I like that.
yeah, it's kind of nice to feel
It's
that
settling
kind
a
of-
bit,
Yeah,
right?
it's settling. It's calming.
And it's nice. Lee has a way.
If only I listened to him sooner. If only.
Well, I find it more often than not, our body's in the present, but our mind isn't.
It's very hard to link the two up on the same course.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely a major key. That was a DJ Khaled drop. Horrendous.
You gotta keep
I like it.
Anyway, so you graduated, and what came next? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do?
Nope. So here's the thing: is I never had an idea exactly what job that I wanted, but I just knew like the realm or the field that I wanted to work in. So through my whole kind of university career, I worked part-time with HRM Recreation, just doing like after-school day camp programs and like summer coordinator and those kinds of things. So I always knew I wanted to work with youth and community, hence why I was in the child and youth degree program. So when I finished, I was working like a kind of full-time at St. Andrews Recreation Center, like 30 hours a week at like minimum wage. I don't know, $8.75. I don't know what it was back then. I also did start working at minimum wage was $6.25. I worked 1 hour a week.
What?
Yeah.
I remember starting and it was like $10.35.
Yeah.
What was it? 625.
$6.25. I was in high school.
Way back.
I was getting 1 hour a week. It was like junior high school, 1 hour a week.
Yeah.
And I would use it for lunch. Like it would get me lunch for like 2 days.
That's awesome.
So what happened after university was that I was working in the weird kind of, not really full time, not that much money, but like I was getting by. So an opportunity came up for a full-time contract position for like 8 weeks in the summertime at Phoenix Youth Programs in Mulgrave Park, Phoenix Youth and Community Center. So the position was for not even coordinator, summer, I don't know what they called it, leader or summer something, for a program called Mulgrave Magic, which sounds like a basketball team.
I know. I was gonna say.
But it was a
It is
like a
great
summer employment program. So here was another moment where I knew I could stay working for St. Andrews, guaranteed hours. There were 30 hours or whatever, or I could go into this position with Phoenix Youth Programs. So I remember when I got the phone call, like I was in the room, like putting equipment away, and I just accepted it right away. Like right away, I accepted it, and so because it had an end date, so like I wasn't sure like if I was going to actually continue or have employment after that. But there's like I just believe at some point like you got to jump. And you have to. And I think it was actually Steve Harvey about jumping and your parachute.
Shout out Steve Harvey.
Absolutely.
That's our first shout out for Steve.
Absolutely. First name basis.
Is he Family Feud?
He is.
He is.
First shout out for the feud.
So you jump and parachute might not open right away. And kind of the analogy of like you see people floating by you and you're still falling, but eventually it happens for you. And so I had to just take the jump and just go with it and see what happens. So when I started it, it was new. So we had to there was a lot of creation and stuff that came with it. And from there, like I believe in like putting things out there. So like I was just telling Phoenix like I want to stay. Like I like the organization. I really want to stay. And somebody got let go or somebody left. Somebody left. And then I after the summer, like there was like a week left in the contract, and I ended up getting a full-time position, starting at like 40-some thousand, and it was like. First of all, I mean it's entry level, but it's like I was just thinking about where I came from, challenges. Just finished university, like I got into a position making like $42,000, so I just had to jump.
Definitely.
It's a great opportunity.
And, yeah, Phoenix is an amazing opportunity. Which house were you in?
So the center actually was fairly new too in Mulgrave Park. So
Yeah,
Phoenix Youth and Community Center.
Right.
But with my time at Phoenix, like I worked at the Phoenix Shelter, Phoenix House, and Phoenix Learning and Employment Center.
Okay, yeah. I spent time the one on Coburg, so the house,
Yep.
and then the one over.
Phoenix Center. Is
That's
one,
the center?
Yeah, Phoenix Center for youth.
Where's the house? The one
Phoenix House is
up here.
Yep.
We used to cook Sunday dinners
Yep.
for maybe 10 or 12 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I remember you doing that.
Yeah, it was a really great experience. I met so many fantastic people that worked with Phoenix.
Absolutely. It's
Incredible people.
it's I feel like I'm coming across all these moments I haven't really thought about, and either I haven't thought
That's
about
what the
or
pod's for, baby. Love.
just giving you a brand new view.
Man, you're definitely our hype guy now. You shouted it out more than anyone.
So there was this moment where I had an apartment. I was doing well. I got my first car, but I was working at Phoenix Shelter, and the moment was when. So if a young person doesn't return, they do not return at their curfew. We pack up their room the next morning, which like we pack up everything and we put it in bags and we store it downstairs. So as I'm packing up this young person's room, there was like a half kind of bottle of pop. And this was summer, so it was like flat and like old and warm. And I was like asking staff, do I throw this out or do we keep it? And they're like, no, keep everything. Okay. So next morning, he came back and just showed him to where his stuff was. And the first thing he grabbed was the pop. And he's like, oh my God, like, oh, I'm so thirsty. Like, this is so great. And like that was a moment for me because I'm thinking, okay, so I'm gonna get into my car. I'm gonna be upset that my AC doesn't start. I'm gonna be so mad that like the internet's not working at home. And then here it is, young person, similar, close to age, and doesn't have anywhere to live, and is just so happy to get like the flat, warm pop. And it just kind of put things in perspective a bit more in terms of what we complain about every single day, but what people have to go through and don't complain about.
That one hits home for sure. I mean, we would all consider ourselves quite fortunate in this room, but to your point, some folks may just want 5-day-old pop, quick rinse, right? It's tough to even fathom. I mean, you can't really put yourself in that position.
Process that. Yeah,
it's really tough for me. I mean, I tried my best when I first moved over here to really live on my own and kind of branch away from everything. And I used to remind myself of those similar things while walking because I didn't have a car. I'm just kind of playing on the point, as soon as you get in your car, you're upset the AC won't go. I used to remind myself, well, just be thankful you can walk. You got 2 feet in a heartbeat. You can get everywhere. You can start to work on your timing, your routine. Just leave 20 minutes. Pardon me. Just leave 20 minutes early. You'll get to where you need to go. And I mean, that was kind of a humbling experience. It really put things in perspective for me as well. And obviously working and volunteering with Phoenix really helped for that. I mean, I'm not the greatest cook, but even mac and cheese went a long way with those folks. So.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's they're young folks who because of such circumstances they may be in. And there's also a narrative around that. But I guess I'll get to that in a second. But because of such circumstances that they may be in, everyone has a perspective, and their perspective, and this young person's perspective, was I still got my pop, and again here I am complaining about all of the other things that I'm fortunate to have, and for me, I could go into the store and buy as much pop as I wanted to buy, but here was this young person who was just happy to get the pop. So put a lot of things in perspective.
Thank God you didn't throw it out.
Oh, I know, right? Like that's what I was thinking, because to me, like it was like, oh, well, like I would just throw that out.
Right. You wouldn't even second guess it.
At all.
Right. Just it's someone's pop. They're finished with the pop, I guess. Yeah, toss it.
Mm-hmm.
That's eye opener.
It's a good lesson.
Yeah,
good eye opener for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So you were How long were you at Phoenix House?
About 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
What were some of the challenges that you faced there? Some of the biggest ones?
I
Sure,
think
there's quite a few.
so. I think particular because we worked in the Mulgrave Park community, there was an unfair and untrue narrative that folks, I would use the term outsiders, but I just mean people who don't live in the community or don't know about Mulgrave Park would provide an unfair narrative that, it's a bad place to go. There's criminals that live there. They're always fighting each other, and it's just absolute. It's just the absolute. It's just not the truth.
It's the opposite.
You
of
can
what's
swear.
actually going
Yeah.
on. Yeah. You
Oh,
can
jeez.
You're like, he wants to swear.
Yeah,
Just do it.
Definitely did. So it wasn't the truth. So one of the kind of first challenges that we encountered was how can we get the proper narrative out to the broader community that this community is great, a resilient community and full of amazing people. So one of the things that we came up with the youth was to do Mulgrave Park Spread the Love Day. And I think this may have been the 5th year. No, more than 5. No, it might have been the 5th year because we probably came up with it around my 2nd year or so. So Mulgrave Park Spread the Love Day was extremely simple concept. We had bright T-shirts. They said MGP Spread the Love Day. And we actually walked around the city and just gave out candy and said
I
nice
remember
things to
this.
people.
Yeah.
And it honestly blew up. Like it did exactly what we wanted to do because we realized when we went to Google and typed in Mulgrave Park, only negative things came
Right.
up. So we completely changed that. So now when you go there, like Spread the Love Day comes
Those
up. And
articles, yeah. That's
Just
a great idea.
article after article on the
Yeah.
coast. I can remember reading it and shining a
That's awesome.
fairly different light than what I would have first anticipated or expected. I mean, I probably fell victim to those prior narratives, but then obviously spending a lot more time around there, couldn't agree more. It's definitely misinterpreted or misrepresented.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like I think.
I never experienced trouble. Like
No, and I think it's great that you actually mentioned that. I may have fell victim to some of.
of
you know,
course,
some,
I
like,
mean, I'm human. Yeah,
yeah.
those things are gonna happen. I mean,
Definitely appreciated that most people just wouldn't mention that, right? Like I think
Yeah,
it's great that you did.
no, I mean, I'm kind of proud of myself that I was able to change
Yeah.
my view. I mean, I think everyone kind of subconsciously or
To a
otherwise
brand
has
new view.
Yeah, everyone has a certain view heading into something.
Well, yes,
But
it's easy
I want to be able to, at least allow myself the option of changing that. I'm not going to be, so stubborn to a point where if I'm wrong, I'm not going to keep pleading my point.
Right.
Like, I'm okay with being proven wrong. So,
Well,
yeah, I was definitely happy to be proven wrong.
I think, well, yeah, I mean, to your point, there's certain narratives that have been pushed throughout history, and I think we all, and especially people who, like you and I, Ben, have a responsibility to see through those narratives and promote the actual true narratives.
Yeah.
I mean, like what you were doing, volunteering with Phoenix House and being part of that. I mean, it obviously changed you. I mean, I don't want to say change you like you're some terrible,
no.
but I mean, it changed your perception in a lot of ways.
Gave me a brand new view.
How many times can we get it? Let's get the
Right.
ticker going.
Oh, it's kind of like 10 people before you go down, and they venture through a cave, and they all come out saying it was the scariest thing ever. You're not the 11th person walking in there thinking this is going to be great. Like you really, you let others dictate kind of how you're feeling in that regard. So if I only heard negative aspects about Mulgrave Park, that was my first thought heading in, but quickly realized there's not much to be worried about for myself. I mean, there could be more going on that I'm not aware about, but until it directly smacks me in the face,
Right.
I was wrong, and I'm cool to be, comfortable in saying that.
And it just makes me think that, does the person actually ever change, or is it just the perspectives change?
That's a really good question.
Because I'm just thinking like, I don't think I've changed much as a person, but my life perspectives have changed so much that I start doing things differently. And
Your
so,
true core values generally stay the same.
right, exactly. But your perspectives are the things
Yeah.
that change.
Yeah. your values help you shape your perspectives. And if your values are true, then I would suggest your perspectives will fall in line with, in accordance to those. I mean, yeah, I would like to think that I'm morally sound, but I also, again, it's kind of going back to that. I know I'm not always going to have my perspectives line up with those morally sound values.
Well, that's what comes to the
that's so
responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
No, I know what you're saying. It comes,
Yeah.
comes down to that responsibility we have of not just assuming this particular narrative or story is correct. You know, you've got to see the whole picture, and then you develop and build.
Yeah, then make your assessment.
A full picture.
Yeah, like it's exactly like judging a book by its cover. I mean, that's the oldest lesson known to man. And I mean, you start learning that in kindergarten, preschool, grade 1. Don't judge a book by its cover. You have to really, dive through the pages. And I certainly learned that growing up. I mean, we did a fair amount of traveling around Atlantic Canada and to Ontario and back, and I was subject to a lot of things that I definitely wasn't subject to in PEI, so I had to quickly adapt and understand, okay, there are so many different ways of looking at this life. Like, so many. And then, of course, moving over to Halifax, it was that same bit, but times a million.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I came from a predominantly white school where we didn't have much going on in terms of culture to that aspect. So coming over to Halifax, it was like either learn and figure it out or fall very far behind.
Yeah.
And I was not going to be that one falling behind. I was like, I can figure this out and make it work and change my perspectives on things.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't affect my values. There
You
Boom.
go.
I got it.
I just think, exposure plays a huge part in breaking down those barriers. So many people have this fear of the unknown because it's just human nature. It's like being afraid of the dark, and
It's exactly
once
like
you-
that cave example, right? I'm going to be fearful of it, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I want to see for myself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And that ties into just being open-minded and,
Right.
and things like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Another challenge is that our goal is to help young people, families, and communities with what it is that they may need help with. And so it's challenging when you run into a situation where it's out of your scope of either your scope of practice or out of your depth in terms of what you are able to do for someone. And so it's kind of a hard reality when you learn that you're not able to help everyone, and you can only do so much. So, like, one of the things I say all the time is, like, you've got to be kind of out of your mind sometimes to continue, like, working in, like, youth and community kind of field, because you hit so many roadblocks, and they can get you down, and you just feel like stopping or you're defeated some days. So you got to be a bit wild sometimes and, like, out of your mind a bit to do it, because you got to, there's like stop and start.
And you may encounter 100 negative aspects throughout a day, and it's hard to pinpoint on the one or two positives and take those home with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can speak to that a little bit with
I was
coaching.
going to say, yeah. And
It's so
that's
hard
pretty
leaving.
loaded.
It's with a startup. Oh, definitely. It's very hard to remove yourself from that and remind yourself, okay, these one or two small victories are just that. They're great victories. Trying not to focus so much on the negatives, and that's probably a lot what you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only surmising, but I can only imagine what you encountered and all the challenges you faced. You probably had fewer victories.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of no's. There's a lot of things that happen.
Red tape,
yeah.
everything.
Oh man, yeah. Plenty of red tape.
That's all I heard about.
And unfortunately, I mean, sometimes things, especially in a nonprofit sector, things come down to money.
Yeah. Money and budget.
Yep, money and budget.
Budget. The budget.
But you get innovative and you keep going and you put it out there and things start to work.
So that was, I guess what I'm wondering is, with the 5 years at Phoenix, what made you decide to end it at 5 years? Was it another opportunity that came calling, or was it like, I need to, move to the next step in my life?
It was really that, so like kind of my view in terms of my view is that like I want to get in a place where I can influence the most amount of people, to make the most amount of positive change. So it's not in the sense that I outgrew Phoenix, because I'm not that full of myself, but I just wanted to kind of get to a place where I'm able to influence a bigger group of folks. And I didn't know that I was going to go into municipal government. I didn't know that I was going to work with the youth advocate program, but an opportunity came up with them. And so that was, again, just a bigger, a broader kind of view in terms of the city and ways that I'm able to hopefully provide some type of positive influence for community in general.
And I mean, Phoenix, 5 years, that's an amazing stepping stone to any career path. And I mean, not to kind of highlight or go back on your comment of, you know, I'm not that full of myself. Sometimes I'm mostly speaking about myself here, but you can get to a point where you're hitting your ceiling at a certain job,
yes,
and you're no longer beneficial to yourself or the company,
yep.
right? So it's kind of like you can look at outgrowing it two ways. You outgrew it, and you can be full of yourself, or you outgrew it, and there's not much more you can accomplish. So it's probably time to move on.
Yeah.
Is that how you felt coming on the 5 years?
Yeah, definitely, because I want to do good so bad.
Right.
Like so bad that
Hard to tell.
so bad that like I understand that certain things need to be, like, I'll sacrifice certain things to do it. Sleep, like what relationships, like.
Wait, you actually do sleep?
We didn't. Sleep wasn't actually mentioned.
Yeah, sleep wasn't mentioned, so if it's not on that calendar, then I don't believe it happens.
Oh geez, sometimes I don't. Like I don't.
You're a driven individual.
Yes, and this is the part where I'm like, you got to be kind of crazy sometimes,
Yeah.
To keep going, because it is tiring day in and day out, just seeing and hearing about like the stories and things that are happening to young people and things that are happening to community. So you've just got to you got to believe that something different is going to happen than what has been happening, and if you don't believe that, then there's just no point, because like and I guess an easy example to think about is racism absolutely exists and discrimination exists in Halifax. So if I'm going to continue to do work in communities and I'm not going to believe that we can't change perspectives and change ideas in terms of folks who are racist or giving off discriminatory behavior, then what am I doing it for? Because I just have to believe that it's going to be able to change. People live in poverty. I need to be able to actually believe that poverty, we're able to change that, and we are able to change that, and you have to actually believe that, because if you don't, there's just no point.
And is this something that you would remind yourself of quite often?
Yes, I have to, because there's days where, like,
but that's kind of like building your strong will,
right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
It kind of goes back to your earlier point of remind yourself daily, and kind of will it into existence. But it's quite powerful. I'm sensing with you, where if you remind yourself each day, we got to believe that I can make a difference.
Yep.
But now you're seemingly making a difference, so you're willing it into existence.
I am, but not enough yet. But
that's your hunger. That's the drive.
It's never going to be enough.
It's never going to be.
That's part of the drive that you have. You will keep going.
Probably good that you're a perfectionist in this line of work. You're always striving for that next best bit.
Yeah. I mean, like when I wake up, like I if there's a fly on the wall when I'm getting, like I listen to like I just go on YouTube and find like motivational speakers, or like people, like it's just like a like kind of like a loop in terms of different motivational speakers, and just like saying different and certain things, and like I have in my phone just like endless notes of like stuff that are like good thoughts that I heard or things, and like I'll go back to those, but I just find like trying to get myself in a mindset daily to continue, because no day is the same, and no day is the same, and there's just I know that there's going to be something new that I'm just going to need a little bit of extra to kind of get me over the hump.
Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself ever meeting points of exhaustion, or are you just the drive pushes you through?
Yep. So when I was doing my master's at Acadia, so it was a cohort, so it was taught at Mount St. Vincent University, and this was the kind of the ending where I had to do my counseling practicum placement. So I was doing my counseling practicum placement at 35 hours a week, and I was working my full-time job at 35 hours a week, and then doing life. And then classes were on the weekend. So it was like Monday to Friday was 70 hours, and then...
Trying to do the math here.
No, I got confused. Like I was like, wait, you went back to MSVU? Like
you discover an extra day of the week
yeah,
that you're not telling anyone about?
Slow down.
So it did sound a bit confusing. So my master's degree through Acadia, but it was a cohort, and majority of the cohort lived in Halifax. So they decided to have the professors drive in and teach the cohort at Mount St. Vincent University. And then for my practicum
That's pretty clutch for you.
Oh, it was great. It was great. It was great. And so my practicum placement was in counseling services at Mount St. Vincent University, which that was an interesting experience as well. So I was doing 70 hours a week, Monday to Friday, and then class on Saturday, 9 to 4. And Sunday was like, do homework or whatever.
Sleep?
Just lie on the ground.
Yeah, like just relax. 70 hours, I'm trying to do that. That's what, 5 14-hour days?
Well, so the way that I did it is I was doing them both at the same time, almost. So like I would start counseling services, I think 8:30 maybe. No, I would start at 9. And I would get to the Mount at 8, and I would start working once I got to the Mount on any of my HRM stuff, trying to get as much of that out of the way before 9 o'clock starts. So then 9 o'clock would start, and I would be seeing clients counseling. And then every time I had a break, you usually get a 15-minute break in between. I'd be on my phone, doing the HRM stuff, answering staff phone calls. And then lunchtime would come, and then I would get back on my phone, and I would do all the HRM stuff, answer phone calls, emails. Then I'd go back in, counseling, finish, and then I would jump back on the phone line until nighttime, catching up on all the administrative stuff. And then there were times I would have to do my staff meeting. So I still had to make staff meetings. So I was still orchestrating the staff meeting. So I would do the staff meeting, and I would only have a window of an hour, do the staff meeting, and then get back to the Mount to continue counseling. So, but I ended up figuring it out. It worked out. It sounds crazy, but it worked out.
Yeah.
I did it.
Wow.
I'm just yeah, I thought I was busy.
Yeah.
Nope.
Now you can't complain anymore. No.
I'm still going to.
No.
You heard what I said about Sundays. I don't want to do anything. That's impressive. So that was kind of right after Phoenix jumping into HRM while tackling a master's while counseling.
Yeah, so my
Anything
master's
else under that cape, or no?
There's actually a couple other things.
Stop it. Don't tell me you went back and played your 5th season for the Mount.
No. We started a...
Did you have basketball practice 6 days a week as well?
We did when I was there, actually.
Seriously.
We actually did, honestly. 6 days a week.
Did you guys go to nationals?
Every year I was there. We went to...
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that was the best way you could answer that every year. So that's impressive. So you were just about to say or add more to your ridiculous schedule there? Yeah.
So started a lot. Well, a couple of years when I was at Phoenix, started a social enterprise called Future Roots, and it was a social enterprise that employed young people ages 13 to 17 in Northern Halifax, provided them with employment while also helping out the community. So started from the issue that we noticed that there were seniors or there were older folks who owned homes in North End Halifax but weren't able to do the maintenance outdoors and the upkeep. And then there were young people who were younger than 16, 15 who were eager to work but weren't allowed. So we kind of put those two worlds together, and it morphed into something that was just a beautiful idea. There's that word beautiful again, I don't use much.
Starting not to think that that's true.
So we had probably a roster of about 15 youth employees, and not only seniors, but like schools would hire us on, seniors complexes, businesses would hire the young people to go and shovel or do kind of whatever the odd job was. They would pay,
Rake, anything like
Yep,
that.
yep.
That's a really cool.
they'd pay
initiative.
us, and then we would pay the youth. And the way that we got around like the like legal implications, I guess, is that it's an honorarium or a stipend or a training wage. And so,
Fuck that red tape.
you know,
Yeah.
got to move
you
around
cut
it.
right through it or move right around it.
So we were providing them with first aid training, women's training, customer service training. And so by the time you're 15, 16, you've had 3 years, you've had 2 years work experience, 3 years work experience, all your certifications, and you're ready to kind of roll right into, real employment, so to say.
That's a really nice initiative. And you were one of the kind of founding fathers for
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
still operating it, or have you passed it along?
So myself and Ashley Linden, who she actually works with me at the Youth Advocate Program, we kind of really took it on. She was like her heart was in it. It still is. Actually, we were talking about it today. So what happened was that I was at the point, this happened during my counseling placement and work and all that stuff. So I had the legal documents in front of me. Major thanks to McGinnis Cooper. Like they were taking this on, and they were going to help me incorporate it to become a formal nonprofit. But during that time, like I was honestly I was in like one of the worst probably mental spaces ever, and so I just decided like I couldn't do it because a lot of the folks who were who were saying that they were going to support me or support the program just weren't there. So I felt like I was just me, and it's no disrespect to Ashley. That's just how I felt. So I just didn't sign it, and. I think now, like, if it was a bad decision to make, but, like, I just felt, that's how I felt, is that I couldn't do it. So because of that, it's currently not operational, but I still mention it, like, in terms of anything, because there's going to be the moment where I do bring it back. I just think it's too good of an idea to not happen. And it's important, I think, for young people to start employment early.
Yeah.
Get those necessary skills so that when it does come time to enter the workforce, of course, it's that much easier to transition.
Yeah.
I think that's an incredible program, especially with the baby boomers on their way out. I mean, no shortage of those in the North End or Halifax as a whole. That's really cool. You were involved in quite a bit, and if you don't mind, do you mind touching on the mental aspect of things?
Absolutely. So
what was going on?
Yeah. So it's something that I became more comfortable talking about once I started getting through my counseling program, because I started to understand mental health a little bit more, and so like I was not practicing self-care as much as I should have been. And one may say, well, when would you even have time to do so? There's time, and it doesn't.
We kind of mask it with ourselves. The busier we get, we're like, oh, we're doing great, but
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh no,
Just
no
that
worries.
was at the forefront of my mind.
And people will often make excuses that I don't have time to do such and such. And I was one of those people who just made excuses to not take care of myself. And so I was in just like an awful mental state. Full disclosure, like I was contemplating suicide at one point. Like I was just honestly in a terrible space, and I was just kind of just functioning. Like I was just existing really. And so I was doing my thing. Like people thought like everything was all good, but I just always think like with people in general, there's a whole story behind a smile that you just don't know about. Like there's kind of just a whole world of either hurt, trauma, whatever it is that the person just doesn't want to tell you, but they'll smile and have a conversation.
There's always a story behind the smile.
Yeah.
Obviously, in this context, it rings that much truer.
Absolutely. Because people aren't necessarily forthcoming with things. So you can think about when somebody says, just in passing, "Hey, how's it going?" The response is normally,
Not so bad. Pretty good.
Exactly,
Things are
right?
going well.
Bad
But-
you?
Yeah, not bad.
exactly. But imagine if I said, "Hey, how's it going?" and the person actually stopped to tell me what was really going on. I don't think people are actually ready for that. So
Yeah, that's true.
don't ask somebody how they're doing if you're actually not really prepared for what they're really going to tell you. Because most people, 99% of people, are going to say, good, not too bad, you. But there will be that person when you ask how you're doing, and they have a whole shitload of things to tell you.
It's a good lesson I learned, and you could probably speak to this as well, working with kids, not only through Phoenix, but with coaching. They're very literal.
Yeah.
That's a generalization of most kids, but most kids are literal. So if you ask them how they're doing, it's not just a good you. They'll
tell you.
They'll tell you, like, what's up? What did you do this afternoon? Well, I did X, Y, and Z. As opposed to saying nothing, not much. Like our kids definitely get into it. If I have to be ready for their answer is what I'm suggesting. I don't ask the question unless I've got time to sit around and be like, how are you doing? You don't seem yourself today.
Yeah, and I mean, like, at the time, so there was my master's was going on, my counseling placement. I was working. I was sitting on 2 boards. One I was co-chair of, and like I made the decision that December that I had to drop the boards. I had to drop everything I was doing because, like, I kind of woke up and, like, I wasn't seeing my family. I was hardly seeing my girlfriend. Like, I had no time for nobody, and I just became so consumed with just all of the things that I was doing, with no concept of what's actually happening around me, no concept of taking care of myself. So I made a decision, dropped off the boards, and which freed up some more time for me, and then made a conscious decision to move forward with making sure that, like, I'm taking care of myself. Because if I want to do this type of work and I want to be the best version of myself and I want to make sure that I'm helping folks, like, I need to make sure that I'm taken care of, because if not, I'm just functioning and I'm just there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of those. It's a selfish lesson. A selfish lesson I had to learn, probably similar to this. You have to take care of yourself. Like, you're on this planet for you. I would constantly give myself to others, and they would consume more of my attention than I was consuming, and then I had the same sort of epiphany. Why am I giving so much of my energy to something else? I'm not giving enough to me.
Right.
And it's just interesting. You kind of had that same.
And it's maybe not even. And it's not even why are you giving so much of your energy, because you want to, but it's
yeah.
you're giving. You're not giving your best energy.
There you go.
You're not giving the best energy that you can give. And
if you're not going to take care of yourself, it's going to affect the work that you're doing.
Boom.
And that is going to affect the people that you're trying to help, and you're not going to be able to help out as much as you could if you start helping with yourself first.
That's a strong building block from that point, right? Take care of you.
Well,
everything
it goes
else
back to the hierarchy of needs again.
Right. Right.
Is that a full circle?
There
We're
you
tying
go.
a lot of loose ends in this episode.
This is great. Tying a lot of loose ends. You devil.
The thing is if you go grab a cup out of the cupboard and take a drink without pouring anything into it, you can't drink from an empty cup, kind of thing. So.
Love it. Metaphors
I like
galore.
I like that a lot. It's so true. It's so true. I feel like I've read that meme like a million times.
You certainly have.
You can't drink from an empty cup. You have to fill it with something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've had a similar narrative to this, but it's so interesting to see how many lessons we're able to learn on this podcast. I can't say it enough.
And so, took a step back, reassessed.
Yep.
Left some or all of the boards.
I left them all.
Left them all.
Yeah, I was on United Way Halifax. I was just getting ready to chair a committee, and I was on. I was on 3. I was co-chair of Children, Youth, and Families Board for Halifax County, and then I was on co-chair of VEITH House Board, and I left all of them.
You did.
Had to, yeah.
Recharge.
And like the thing was around self-care. So like I'm grabbing my phone because it's possible at some point like I may read something, just depending on like what it is.
Okay.
But like one of the self-care things that I do is like I write poems or spoken words. So I have one. I'll probably read it if you don't mind.
We'd love for you to read it. First poem on Brand New Youth.
So yes. it's actually a true story. And so like the thing for me is I and I'll explain why. So like I write things when I actually feel something about something. So like when like all I was seeing on Facebook and the news was like police brutality in the States. Like I wrote something about it. This story, like when I was feeling something about this young man, like I wrote about it because I think, and I learned this from counseling, so that, you know, I actually learned something. So is my analogy with like baggage or trauma and stuff is that we all have a backpack, and you can think about like whether you're in school and you're walking around with your backpack, and the day is like a little bit harder, but you don't really notice it. And the second like you take that bag off your shoulders, it's like, oh man. And so I really think about in terms of unloading things out of my backpack. So like that's why my phone is just filled with so many thoughts and so many different things. And even like around like understanding like trauma and how it works is most people in their house has a junk drawer where you just like put stuff in there.
Third one down.
and eventually like you go to stick something in there and it doesn't fit, and then things just start overflowing everywhere. And so when things happen to us, or you know just people in general, we sometimes, like if we don't want to deal with it, we just put it away in our junk drawer in our brain, and you know I'll deal with it later. But then slowly you can't fit anything else in that junk drawer, and all of a sudden you kind of have a blow up. And that's part of kind of for myself when I was in that kind of mental state. Like my mental health just wasn't the greatest. I wasn't taking care of things. I was just letting things go by. So I'll read this one. It, like I said, it's a true story. It actually was when I was with Phoenix. All right, so what's up? As I give props to the young black boy sweating and out of breath. The sun was out. It was like 23 degrees. He had on jeans and a black hoodie. So logically, to me, he would be sweating beads. I knew this young boy and his mannerisms. He was always fresh to death, cool, calm, and collect. So when he failed to share a laugh and ask, "Yo, Rico, what's up with the Toronto Raps?" or "Can I get some help with math?" I proceeded to ask, as if I were the dad sadly I knew this young black boy never had. "What's going on?" He looked at me, stone-faced, eyes glazed, and told me the story of how 2 bullets just grazed him and his friends. He continued to stare, looking at me, waiting for my response to be shocked and amazed. My mind races to the time spaces and my eyes stick to him. I go over my mind primary to grade 12 education curriculum. We're told to sit down, do your work, and stay on task. And at this moment, I realize there's nothing that I learned from a book or a class that can provide me with a logical reason to tell him, after he's just been shot at, please don't shoot back. So I say, I'll do what I can to help, be strong, and things will be okay. And I wonder if he heard the uncertainty in my voice. What I wanted to say was, be smart and be careful. This life you live as a young black boy is a handful. Don't wear a black hoodie or reach for your phone or keep your pants pulled up. Maybe you'll be left alone. Always say, yes, officer, and do what they ask, because one slight hand movement could be your first or your last.
Yeah. Wowzers.
So that one, true story, and also written at the moment of when the things with Trayvon Martin and
Right.
the police brutality and things were happening in the United States. So like when I'm feeling something, like I'll write something.
But that's another
super
thing.
powerful.
Well, that's a whole other can of how the media portrays that situation.
Absolutely.
It's just
that's
comes down
good,
to the
yeah.
responsibility we have as individuals to see past that.
Which is very difficult to do.
It's you have to be conscious constantly
Yeah.
because we're fed certain narratives.
We're fed bullshit all day, every day.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
have to know what to... You have to have a pretty good shit filter.
You do. I think kids have the best one. Like I always say, kids have the greatest bullshit filter. Like they know when you're bullshitting them, and they'll call you out on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially if they're in a group, all it takes is one. The one that knows, and then the rest follow suit. They're all little followers. All it takes is one that would be able to call you out.
And they'll ruin your life. They have no filter.
Yeah, you can always,
Oh my! So now you're working for the Youth Advocate Program as part of the Halifax Regional Municipality, and is that similar to work to what you were doing with Phoenix, or?
So, in a sense, yeah. Like so, similar population, a little bit younger. So, Youth Advocate Program, we work with youth ages 9 to 15, and Phoenix was ages 12 and up. And so, Youth Advocate Program. We're now in 14 communities in HRM. Our team is made up of 12, including myself, which is 9 youth advocate workers, community worker, and a assistant, and then myself. So we work with young people aged 9 to 15 who are already involved in crime or criminal activity or at high risk of being involved. And kind of the good thing about our program is we work with the youth and we work with the family, because you could do some great stuff with a young person, but if you're not working with the family, they could go home to, who knows what kind of situation, which may negate all of the work that you've been doing. So similar in a sense, but just a different kind of focus. We have 45 youth in our program at any given time, and each youth advocate worker has 5 youth on their caseload. So it's an intensive case management kind of program. We get the youth by a referral basis, and most of them come from school or then police and family or whatever.
That's good, though. At least school is looking out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, probably 85% of our referrals come from schools.
Wow. That's huge. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
So 45 kids. So basically, 4 kids.
5.
4 or 5 kids per person.
Yeah, 5 kids per youth advocate worker. And varying kind of ages. I mean, a lot of the questions we get is like, well, how can a 9-year-old be involved in crime or criminal activity? And so there's a difference between 9, 10, 11, even 12-year-olds, but 9, 10, 11-year-olds versus 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. And so
puberty.
Well, that, yeah. That and 9 and 10-year-old may be stealing pencils or something from the teacher. He may be fighting and beating up kids. He may be hanging out with older group of people.
Starting to swear.
Yeah, and or even like the community police officer may have had to talk to the young person so many times. So there's a pattern, and then kind of gets put into a referral, and then we assess if they're a fit or not. So you can see if a young 9, 10-year-old is already involved in criminal activity. Like stealing is a crime. So if you're stealing pencils and pens, like it may progress. If you're hanging with older group of folks who are involved in some things, you eventually may get involved in that stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. And you want to reach them before it gets to that point.
Exactly. That's why we work with them so young.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
awesome.
Present day. That's where we're at now.
Yep. So I work there full time, and I work ironically at Mount St. Vincent University part time.
Can't get away from MSU.
I can't.
And so you're working as the Black Student Support Coordinator there?
Yeah. So new role to Mount St. Vincent University. It used to be called Afrocentric Support Group Coordinator, and just my questions were, well, what is that? So can we change the role and make it more encompassing for all Black students, no matter if you're international or local, for support? So new role part-time. My goal eventually is to somehow get it to be a full-time position. It doesn't need to be me in it, but I just think that it needs full-time support.
Full-time attention, full-time awareness. That'd be an interesting program to get involved with while going to school. For prospective students. I mean, they could spend their entire undergrad kind of working at that while simultaneously taking their degree.
Yeah,
that's really cool. You seem to have that entrepreneurial drive where you really want to make things that you're passionate about work.
They will.
I commend. Yeah, I commend you for that. That's
that's
impressive.
You can make a difference.
Yeah.
So you take the steps to do so.
Well said.
Yeah, I try. I'm good for it.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm struggling here, coming on the end. I'm getting tired.
That's cool. Well, no, I'm getting the sense that you don't like to half-ass things.
No.
So
No.
right now you've got.
I don't think he's capable of half-assing anything.
No, full ass all the way.
I like it.
So I guess that kind of leads us to what does the future hold? You've got these 2 things you want to potentially have the part-time role at MSCU grow. Would you
permanent?
Full-time permanent? Would you kind of leave the HRM position to do that, or are you just gonna?
Nope, I would stay with HRM, and I just want to build something for MSVU, so then someone else can roll into a position and support students there.
Very selfless of you.
Well,
kind of fits the mold.
Yeah. Par for the course.
Par for the course.
So So future stuff. I have some political ambitions.
Are we looking at the next prime minister?
I've got some political ambitions. We'll say.
I like it.
I love it.
Sooner or later?
Sooner.
Okay.
Mighty coy behind that microphone over there, Rico.
Sooner. So I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to give the opposition any
A leg up.
leg up. So I'll leave it in terms of because I know a lot of people listen to this, so I'll leave it as I do certainly have some political ambitions, and it just again it goes back to I just want to be in a place where I'm able to affect the most positive change, and the next thing just seems to be a politician.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were, this is something you spoke about, I don't know if it was off air prior to starting this, about, sitting down with your mom and speaking about potentially starting a podcast. I do the same thing when looking at a job, and I think you did do this where you wrote down like things you wanted to accomplish or things you thought you were good at, or, you make a list, like, what do I want to do? I want to make money. I want to help people. I want to, whatever the case may be. Is affect change the top of your list every time?
I want to make a difference. So I think that there's a difference between change. Yeah. So I want to make.
You want to make an impact, a lasting one.
Right. So there's a difference between. I want to make an imprint. So there's a difference.
We're getting down to it.
So there's a difference, right? Like I think there's actually a difference between an impact and an imprint. An impact is, I had a great time with DeRico today. But an imprint is, I had a great time with DeRico today, and he made me think about what I want to be when I'm older and what I want to do. So it's more about like
leaving a mark.
Yeah.
You think about imprint, you're leaving an imprint so people can follow you in your footsteps.
Well, yes, because ooh, that was good. That was good. Ooh, jeez, a couple over there.
Yeah. Jeez. It's Friday night, folks. We are on it.
Because if you think about it, someone else had to imprint somewhere for myself to continue. Like nobody who's doing anything has ever. I don't know of anybody who's ever just done something on their own. There's been hundreds, if not thousands, of people I've known, people I may not have known, who have helped me out to get me to where I am today. And like I'm just hesitant on using the word successful because it's such a relative word.
Use it.
But I'm just.
Dude, you ooze success.
I'm in a good spot. Yeah. I'm in a good spot.
Very humble, folks.
Yeah.
I'm in a good spot.
You're doing well. You're on the right path, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm on a path. I think it's the right one. I'm on a path.
I like that you clarified that, because everyone has a different path. So who's right and who's wrong with that? You're on the path you're supposed to be. Not to play back to my
in particular, yeah.
My dad's quote, but you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Full circle.
Whew.
Jeez.
And cut.
All right, I think we'll end it right there. That's a perfect time to do it. DeRico, once again, really appreciate you stopping by. We know this is the only free time you had, so I hope you enjoyed it.
Time well spent. Yeah,
it was an
amazing
amazing
not
story.
Picking up the check.
Yeah.
That's on you.
No, piggybacking on that point, again, very, very thankful that you were able to take some time out of your schedule on a Friday night. I think that in terms of exactly what we're looking to accomplish, your view is it's incredible. The amount you've been able to accomplish. I'm assuming you're not 30 yet.
I actually just turned 30 in January.
30, okay, so not a fair assumption. So all by the age of 30. That's pretty impressive stuff, man. We're very thankful to have you on. Very fortunate to obviously have a connection with Mark. Speaking more so for myself, but definitely happy to have met you now in live color, in an official setting. But hear your story and hope that others will be able to hear it, relate, and perhaps have that courage to storm through. Or how did you word it exactly? Kind of just. You got to do it at some point. You just got to dive in.
You got to jump. You just got to jump
at
at some point.
And I know you mentioned the work that you're doing is incredibly important, and that's we wanted to bring that to light in this podcast. But Ben and I were talking about just as important are the people that are doing that work, like people like you. So we wanted to say thanks for doing what you do, and keep it up.
very, very much appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. Doesn't matter that it's a Friday. It's honestly time well spent. So
Every day is a Friday when you're with us.
Oh well.
Sorry, I had to.
no, appreciate it.
That's
Broke that.
Yeah, that's one way to quiet a room.
All right, for a brand new view, I'm Mark.
I'm Ben.
Until next week, folks.
Cheers.
Have a good week.
With the same old blues. I was the same old me. With the same old blues. I was the same old me. With the same